What up, everybody? D-Man back, and this is kind of due to popular demand. Today, me and
Wolf of Dimensions, hey guys, I'm back.
are going to be continuing our Versus series. This time a little different just because last time we did G14 versus Godzilla 95. This time, due to a special request from endermaster 1987, we will be doing Spacegodzilla versus
Destroyah!
Oh yeah, the two brutes of the Heisei series.
So let's get into it.
Now, starters, we're introducing this on the same airfield as before. Now, this is where all of our showdowns will go. I guess we'll have a picture of it. But all of our fights will go down on the same airfield from 1995 for a multitude of reasons. And for this battle, Space Godzilla will need a crystal tower place.
Yeah, the other reasons are it's just a big flat land, so there should be no problems there with in terms of the kaiju fighting, and it's just a good location.
Sounds pretty good. I like it. It sounds stable. It looks like we're going to have ourselves a great series going on here. Now, for power and ability, Space Godzilla rocks in with telekinesis, crystal powers that he got from the black hole in space. He can fly. He has the Corona beam, which he can control. Is that correct, D-Man?
Yeah,
What other lovely abilities does our first opponent have?
regeneration. He can create crystals that give him power. He has an energy shield. He can fire crystals, and he has gravity powers. He is also 120 meters, which is 360 feet.
Yes. So he's not someone to be put up against. He's not someone a pushover. He's definitely not a pushover. Now, mentally, I'm gonna start doing the mental review of these monsters because Space Godzilla is not really a wild card and he's not a destruction monster. He has his own conscience, just like Godzilla does, and his conscience is pure evil. He wants to rule the Earth and then eventually destroy everything in it, which causes malice intent, which means that he's more dedicated, I'd say, than Destroyah is, if you really had to get into it. Now, what this malice will do is that it will create a skill, a drive that you can't see in most of these monsters. It'll also create a sense of strategy and tactics, which Space Godzilla is pretty good at. It's just that every now and then he has overconfidence.
Yeah, and then there's one other thing that I didn't add about Space Guzzle in terms of powers. He also has a very sharp tail that can be used for stabbing, and it is strong enough to lift Mogera up off the ground and throw him. So that is another thing he has going for him.
Yeah, so Space Godzilla is basically evil Godzilla, as we all know. He is very strong, very tough, very large, and again, he's not a pushover. So next we go to our other contestant, Destroyah. Now, this creature marches in at what height?
Max height is 120 meters, aka 360 feet. I had to say max feet or max because Destroya has a microscopic form, which we are not going to be discussing, but we will be discussing the juvenile.
Aggregate form. So he has an aggregate form, basically his forms that build up to the perfect Destroyah form. And we
Yeah,
will be using those.
and he has a flying form, and then he has what is known as the perfect form.
Which means that both of these monsters will actually be fighting in flying form at some point.
And then for the powers or the abilities that Destroya has, he has a horn katana, micro oxygen blast, spikes on his body. That way, it's more for defense on close combat. Um, Depending on which form he has a mouth inside of his mouth, which is good for puncturing it, Godzilla even. And he has a claw on his tail, and in the alternate fight, he has a chest beam, so we will be taking that into consideration also.
I'd like to say quickly, and he does have the mouth puncture, but only in aggregate form, making sure no one gets upset about that. So, now,
Now let's talk about weaknesses for each really fast.
oh yeah, no, this won't be as long. Now, Destroya, he is very bad against intense heat, intense cold. Besides that, he's not really as able to be damaged as most, which is
Um,
very surprising.
yeah, the only thing that really stood a chance against him was the red spiral breath, which was able to punch holes in him and make him bleed, but even then, he didn't show any signs of weakening or stopping fighting at any point until he got hit with freeze rays.
And the reason why is what we can tell is that basically he is the incarnate of the oxygen destroyer, the thing that will destroy the entire world if allowed. So Destroya doesn't is not weak to much, and it's almost a surprise Godzilla killed him. But that means that Space Godzilla does have a chance. It shows that he has a chance of beating him.
Now, what are Space Godzilla's weaknesses?
Oh, Space Godzilla's weaknesses are a bit more viable. His crystals on his shoulders, they aren't that strong. If they're blasted off by the beam, by Destroyer's oxygen destroyer beam, he's very much weakened. Also, he has to have a tower to sort all of his power out between his crystals. If this is destroyed, he doesn't have the tower anymore, which means his power is drafted kind of slightly. He doesn't need the tower fully to have full powers used, but it is a big factor in his fighting style. Now, that means that no matter what, he's going to defend this tower, and sometimes that can be his downfall. Now, also, physically, his arms, because of his shoulders, if you notice, his shoulders are way overgrown. His physical fighting is not good. That means that up close, the only defense he has is his tail or his beam. So it's another situation in which if Destroyer gets up close, Space Godzilla could be destroyed very easily.
Yeah. So, now into the fight.
Oh yes.
The two come up opposite ends of the airfield, and who do you think attacks first?
Oh, easy enough. I think that while Space Godzilla is getting crystals grown, I think Destroya will launch an oxygen destroyer beam off.
Now, that's the one thing, is Destroyer isn't in full form at the beginning of the fight. He would be in juvenile form, so he is about the size of a man.
Oh, yeah, so that means that here's how it goes. Space Godzilla forms his crystals without knowing that the aggregate destroyers are roaming around. Now, once he gets his tower taken out, they all form together to form his giant aggregate form. Now, from this point on, I believe that Space Godzilla fires the first blow, shooting his Corona beam, which puzzles and distracts Destroya.
Yeah, and the beam would definitely do a lot of damage against Destroyer. It was pretty powerful against Godzilla. It's kind of like that electric, sort of lightning type blast, and I think that would take Destroyer off guard. And then I think Space Godzilla would continue to attack from there. I don't think he would let up right away. I think he would start firing his crystals at Destroyer, really giving him everything he got. He could use his gravity powers to lift Destroyer off the ground and then slam him into the earth. So I think right away Destroyer is at a disadvantage in this form.
And so, as this happens, so far he's getting beat, which isn't good for Destroya. So he takes off in his flying form, and he decides to run. So what that means is that Destroya, as he flies away, Space Godzilla would follow because he doesn't follow too far now. Space Godzilla, or Destroya, barely makes it out of the limits before Space Godzilla pushes him back in using his Corona beam. Because Space Godzilla knows if he has an opponent, he has to destroy it in order to control the Earth. So he'll use his flying form to push him back into the city limits, where he will blast the destroyer and make him crash into a building and then form into the perfect destroyer form.
Yeah, and this is where the fight really turns. This is where like it goes from Space Godzilla winning to Destroyer winning, because although Destroyer is the same height, 120 meters, 360 feet, I think he is a lot more powerful. Um, just as we've seen, Space Godzilla was died taking out normal Godzilla, whereas Destroyer was pretty much able to hold his own against Burning Godzilla, which is much stronger than normal Godzilla.
Yes, which is very dangerous feat that we have going on here. Because as Destroyer takes his form, what would probably happen is he would use the horn katana, the glowing horn, slash Space Godzilla, and probably barely miss. Which, which means that Space Godzilla would have to quickly retaliate. And since they're at close quarters at this point, because Destroyer would have went to check to see if his enemy was really dead, Destroyer is open to cut Space Godzilla across the shoulder, leaving a cut that will not heal.
Yeah, and now because Space Godzilla is away from his crystals, he won't be as strong. So now I think Destroyer would go in with that clamped tail, and I think he would grip Destroy or Space Godzilla around the neck. But I think Space Godzilla would do the exact same kind of thing and try and impale Destroyer with his kind of sharp crystal-like claws on the blades on the end of his tail.
So what would have to happen is that while Destroyer wraps his clawed tail around Space Godzilla's throat, Space Godzilla pierces Destroyer somewhere, probably in the side. Now this is where a special feature of Destroyers comes in, because they're at a stalemate, which means that as soon as they're in this stuck form, Destroyer opens up his chest piece and blasts Space Godzilla back with his chest beam. Now, this was only seen in the alternate ending that they made. I'm not sure if it's purely canon, but we thought it would be a useful tool in this fight, especially in this situation. So he gets blasted back from here.
Yeah, and as we've seen, or as some of us have seen in that alternate ending, that chest thing is extremely powerful. So I think he would just start shooting out blasts from that. Then he would start using his micro oxygen beams on him, and I think Space Godzilla would just get immediately pummeled into the ground, just getting exploded with all these energy attacks and really losing any edge he ever had.
So what happens is, Space Godzilla being the thinker, the strategist, he goes and he flies. He flies back to his crystal, knowing Destroyer will follow because Destroyer is the embodiment of chaos. Destroyer can think, Destroyer has a consciousness, but he doesn't apply it well. So he will follow him back to end this, knowing that he has the upper hand, where Space Godzilla will even the playing field. Now at this point, the only thing Destroyer can do is realize that there is a tower and to break the shoulder crystals. Now, what's going to happen is Space Godzilla is going to start launching the crystals down on top of Destroyer. Destroyer, being confused, has to decide quickly what to do, and notices that every time Destroyer uses a beam or a blast, his shoulder crystals glow.
Yeah, and that is the point where he would use either attack the chest cannon or the mouth micro oxygen blasts, and I think he would take out one of the crystals on the shoulder. This would hurt Space Godzilla a ton, distracting him, and this would give Destroy another chance to go for another fire on that shoulder crystal. But this time, I don't think it would land. I think Space Godzilla would know that it's coming and put up his energy shield before anything could happen to him.
And while this is happening, Space Godzilla is protecting this base, standing in front of it. So what would have to happen is Destroyer would probably use his tail to puncture Space Godzilla. Space Godzilla, trying to avoid it, steps to the side, and part of the building is destroyed, leaving Space Godzilla in a frantic state where he doesn't think well. Doing this, he pushes and tries to push away Destroyah, which causes Destroyah to slice him again with the horn.
Yeah, and Space Godzilla at this point is extremely weakened. His tower's falling. Some of his crystals have been destroyed in the fight. One of his shoulder crystals has been blasted off. I think this is the point Destroyer would go for kind of the kill shot, take out that other crystal before that other shoulder crystal, and then just go straight for it and try and kill him immediately.
But you see, with the tower still up, Space Godzilla would do his best to take down his enemy with him. Knowing he's probably not going to make it, he would launch every single attack he had, which would weaken Destroyer greatly, since they're still almost at a kind of a distance, since Space Godzilla would have backed up. Now, what this happens is that I think that the tower would eventually fall from the initial attack Destroyer made on it, which means that as the tower fell, Space Godzilla would lose the edge he had, the second edge he had.
Also, it would make him lose his regeneration abilities. So now any damage done to Space Godzilla is permanent.
And with him weakened, Destroyer uses the Oxygen Destroyer to attack him, and ends up, I think he would actually pick him up, and I think he would actually kill him with the chest beam.
Yeah, and although I do think Space Godzilla would attempt to kind of switch the gravity or do whatever he can do, whether it's the like gravity tornado thing he does where he lifts him up in the air and spins him, I don't think it would change anything because I think Destroyer would have a strong enough grip on his neck with that tail, because that tail Destroyer has was powerful enough to lift up Godzilla Jr. and take a couple shots from him in the process, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
Or it may have even lifted up Godzilla at one point or another. But all I know for certain is that that tail is extremely powerful. I don't think that thing is going to let go anytime soon, and Space Godzilla is screwed.
So, as Space Godzilla is killed, now he dies. It's over. Destroyer, though, is very damaged. Destroyer probably barely makes it out of this fight for the reason of Space Godzilla was a strategic thinker and kept leading him back and leading him back. And he kept trying to use diversionary tactics.
I disagree. I don't think Destroyer is all that damaged at all. I think, yes, he took a couple shots that hurt him, but I don't think he's going to be nearly as hurt as he was at the fight during with Godzilla, only because there's no outside source which is giving him extreme temperatures. I don't think his weakness was exploited in this case, meaning that he would be good to go pretty much. I think he could go on and fight another fight.
Oh no, he'd definitely fight another fight. My point is that he'd be like hurt, he'd be damaged. But as he was damaged, he would disinform into his aggregate stage, probably to move away easily.
Yeah. I don't think nothing's stopping him soon.
No, because the reason why Space Godzilla lost, he's a strong fighter, he's pure evil, and he could easily outdo Godzilla, and probably Mogira too, because he almost did. The thing is that he didn't have the one thing it mainly took to kill Destroyer, the living embodiment of the Oxygen Destroyer. Which makes it to where it's almost an unfair fight until you realize that Space Godzilla was a thinker. Now, in this situation, he got too busy protecting his fortress to think, which was his downfall.
Yep. So I think we're pretty much in 100% agreement. Space Godzilla would put up the best fight that he could, but in end he would lose.
So, yeah, guys, thanks for watching. This is Wolf of Dimensions, and
D-Man 1954.
see you guys.
D-Man out.